All right, we've had a couple of unexpected interruptions today, but we're going to plunge ahead because the show must go on.
I want to talk a minute about production values.
About what?
Production values.
Go right ahead. I have no idea what you mean.
I mean, the fact that, number one, I forgot to put the sign up this time.
Oh, yeah.
And number two, I don't know how to splice these videos. I don't know how to put titles in. I don't know how to put music in. All I know how to do is turn it on and turn it off. So this particular lesson is probably going to be in two pieces. I don't know. I'll have to go in there and figure it out.
Well, we can start over.
No, we're not starting over. In essence, we are starting over in a way, but I'm going to post it in two posts. I just want everybody to know that I know that this is fun with flags or whatever, but it's because I am ignorant. And as soon as somebody wants to come in here and help me figure out how to do it properly, I'll be very glad. Now we can go.
Is that enough?
That's it.
Sure, that was necessary, but I'll let you get by with it.
Thank you.
Back to was she a prostitute or not, and who's in the wrong here? Becky, will you read from verse 24 to the end of the chapter, please?
Okay, are we skipping from 21 through 23?
We just did that.
23? Let me keep what she has and will become a laughing stock. I did that. 24. About 3 months later, Judah was told, "Your daughter-in-law, Tamar, is guilty of prostitution, and as a result, she is now pregnant." Judah said, "Bring her out and have her burned to death." As she was being brought out, she sent a message to her father-in-law. "I am pregnant by the man who owns these," she said. And she added, "See if you recognize whose seal and cord and staff these are." Judah recognized them and said, "She is more righteous than I, since I wouldn't give her my son Shelah." And he did not sleep with her again. When the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. As she was giving birth, one of them put out his hand. So the midwife took a scarlet thread and tied it to his wrist and said, "This one came out first." But when he drew back his hand, his brother came out. And she said, "So this is how you have broken out." And he was named Perez. Then his brother, who had the scarlet thread on his wrist, came out, and he was named Zerah.
Okay, I love the way that the justice prevails here, and that Judah shows himself to be a fool by quickly condemning his daughter. He is the one who initiated the relationship. The translation of verse 26 says, "She is more righteous than I." Doesn't mean she's necessarily morally righteous, but in this matter, she's in the right and I'm in the wrong. So Tamar gets her offspring to inherit her dead husband's land. Judah gets humbled. Remember I said his character will be transformed as we go through it. Let's pay attention to what happens as we move along, and Judah's name will come up again. Let's go ahead into chapter 39. See the contrast with Joseph's behavior when confronted with a not exactly the same situation, but some similarities. I'll read through verse 6. Now Joseph had been brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard, an Egyptian, had bought him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him down there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man. He was in the house of his Egyptian master. Master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord caused all that he did to succeed in his hands. So Joseph found favor in his sight and attended him, and he made Joseph overseer of his house and put him in charge of all that he had. From the time that he made him overseer in his house and over all that he had, The Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. The blessing of the Lord was on all that he had in house and field. So he left all that he had in Joseph's charge, and because of him he had no concern about anything but the food he ate. Joseph proves trustworthy, and the Lord's favor is with him, in spite of the fact that he is still a slave, in spite of the fact that his brothers wanted to kill him, at least some of them, and they sold him into slavery. Now the plot is about to thicken, and Becky, if you will begin in the middle of verse 6 with the description of Joseph, and read to, remind me not to get any more Bibles with little thin pages. Read through verse 10.
Now Joseph was well built and handsome, and after a while his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, "Come to bed with me." But he refused. "With me in charge," he told her, "my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns he has entrusted to my care. No one is greater in the house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" And though she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her or even be with her. One day,
Wait. That was a good stopping place.
okay,
Before we get into the denouement of this scene, Potiphar's wife is not a very good woman, apparently, and she likes what she sees in Joseph and tries to wear him down to give in to her. Notice something important we learn about the nature of sin in Joseph's statement in verse 9. How can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? Although his sin would involve Potiphar and Potiphar's wife, it's only God that he's concerned about. And if I was inclined to preach, I could preach on all sin is ultimately against God.
I think David had the same reaction.
Yes, he did. Psalm 51. Well, things come to a climax here in verse 11 forward. I'll read on. But one day when Joseph went into the house to do his work and none of the men of the house there in the house, she caught him by his garment, saying, "Lie with me." But he left his garment in her hand and fled and got out of the house. And as soon as she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and had fled out of the house, she called to the men of her household and said to them, "Look, he has brought among us a Hebrew to laugh at us. He came in to me to lie with me, and I cried out with a loud voice, 'Liar, liar, dressed on fire.' And as soon as he heard that I lifted up my voice and cried out, he left his garment beside me, fled, and got out of the house." Then she laid up his garment by her until his master came home. She told him the same story, saying, "The Hebrew servant whom you have brought among us came in to me to make sport or to laugh at me. But as soon as I lifted up my voice, cried, he left his garment beside me, fled out of the house." He mentioned just a couple of things. One, this would be his outer garment or his tunic. He apparently did not flee the house naked, but had on an undergarment. But still, he knew to get away from this woman that he doesn't need to stay around and let her cause him more trouble. But of course, we see that she is a liar, among other things. And also, Becky, did you notice the term Hebrew is used twice here?
It was derogatory, I assume.
Well, we don't know for sure whether it was derogatory. It seemed to mean something like a foreigner. The Israelites only use it in Genesis when they're talking to foreigners, and it's only otherwise used in the mouth of foreigners. It might mean something like migrant worker, which some people are derogatory.
Undocumented.
Undocumented, yes. And the Old Testament will have some things to say about that. Mainly, don't mistreat your undocumented workers. But that's a lesson for another time. So, Joseph is in a fix here, but he's not the only one. Captain of the guard also has a problem to deal with. Becky, please read 19 to the end of the chapter.
When his master heard the story his wife told him, saying, "This is how your slave treated me," he burned with anger. Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. But while Joseph was there in the prison, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in the prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done there. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did.
All right, the Lord is with him is repeated throughout the story of Joseph. And although he gets into what looks like one dilemma after another, God's able to deliver him, which I would say is the main lesson of the story of Joseph. No matter how our circumstances look, God can bring good from them. In fact, God is going to save all the Israelites, spoiler alert, and bring them back to the land of Canaan. But I want to, before we stop, look at verse 19 again. When Potiphar, the captain of the guard, hears what his wife says about Joseph, he burns with anger. Who do you think he's angry with?
I think he suspects that Joseph is reliable and his wife ain't.
You're probably right. He seemed to be angry because his wife has put him in an impossible situation.
Because if he admits that Joseph was right and his wife was wrong, then he has to admit that he is a cuckold.
A cuckold?
A cuckold.
A cuckold. Yes, that's true. Plus, it would cause all kinds of problems with his official position. He has turned over his household practically to Joseph, and now it looks like it's backfired on him. So he's angry about the situation, but seeing the kind of woman that she is, he probably knows what the real story is, but he has to act like he doesn't and put Joseph in prison. We'll learn in the next chapter, by the way, where this prison is, where it's located.
I don't remember.
In the house of the captain of the guard. Probably his basement. In other words, Joseph is still there in Potiphar's house and is going to continue to bring favor on his master. Well, you remember what Joseph's brothers referred to him as back when they sold him into slavery?
The dreamer.
Not only the dreamer, but the master dreamer. This expert in dreams. Well, we're going to have dreams come up again in the next chapter, but now we're going to quit because we had technical difficulties. I don't know exactly how long we went in this lesson. Feel free to stop at any point and resume later. And remember...
now you tell them.
Yeah, now I'm not going to tell them in the middle. Come on. I learned a few things when preaching. Becky forgot to put the sign up, but remember, don't send money. The Lord bless you and keep you.
Amen.